Imagine this. You're a single dad, ready for a much-needed getaway with your baby girl. You're all set, first class, luxury, everything perfect. But then something shocking happens over and over again. You're asked to prove who you are just because of the color of your skin. In first class, and what does he do? He cancels the flight with a single phone call. This isn't just any story. This is about standing up, taking control, and refusing to be treated like you're less than anyone else. Stay tuned. You won't believe how this all went down. Marcus was still trying to shake off the surprise when another flight attendant, who appeared to be in her mid-30s, approached him with the same request. This time, she didn't offer the polite, welcoming smile he had gotten from the first attendant. Instead, her expression seemed a bit more stern, almost as if she was questioning his right to be seated in first class. "Sir, I'm going to need you to confirm your identity again," she said in a tone that felt more like an instruction than a request. Marcus, though confused, complied. His frustration began to grow, but he remained calm for the sake of his daughter, who was now starting to squirm in his lap. "Of course," he said, handing over his ID for the second time, trying to hide the irritation creeping into his voice. He couldn't understand why this was happening. He had flown first class many times before, and never had his identity been questioned like this, especially not in front of other passengers. As the seconds stretched into uncomfortable minutes, Marcus noticed the flight attendants huddling together, whispering to each other. It felt like the longer they took, the more the attention on him grew. People were starting to stare, and his unease was turning into full-blown discomfort. Was this a misunderstanding, or was there something more at play here? His heart began to race as the question that lingered in his mind became impossible to ignore. Was he being singled out for some reason beyond just a routine check? Marcus's patience was beginning to wear thin. His mind raced as he sat there, cradling his daughter, who was now visibly fidgeting in his arms. He could feel the eyes of the other passengers on him. Some were glancing over curiously, others were staring openly, and a few seemed to whisper among themselves. It was becoming clear that this was no longer a routine ID check. He watched as the flight attendants huddled in a small group, exchanging hushed words, all while Marcus sat in the seat, still holding out his ID. He couldn't help but notice that the whispers weren't just about verifying his identity, they were about him. There was a quiet tension in the air, as though the flight crew was waiting for something to happen. Finally, the third attendant, a woman in her mid-40s with stern eyes, spoke up again. "We're just following protocol, sir," she said, but this time, her tone was colder, more dismissive. "We need to be sure you're authorized to be in this section of the plane." Marcus felt his heart race. What did she mean by authorized? He had booked the tickets months in advance, had paid the high price for first class, and everything was in order. There were no issues with his reservation or his ID. It didn't make sense. Why was he being treated like this? Authorized? Marcus echoed, his voice tightening with frustration. "I'm a paying customer, just like everyone else here. There's no reason for this." "Is this about my ID or something else?" His words hung in the air, and the attendants shifted uncomfortably. Marcus could sense it. They were avoiding his direct question. His gut told him this wasn't just about security or protocol. Something more was happening, and he felt it deeply. This wasn't just a mistake, it was an attack on his dignity. The more he thought about it, the clearer it became. His treatment was racially motivated. As the minutes dragged on, Marcus couldn't help but feel trapped in a nightmare. His palms were sweating, and his thoughts were clouded with frustration. It wasn't just the endless requests for his ID that bothered him. It was the clear discomfort and suspicion he felt radiating from the flight attendants. He had always prided himself on keeping his composure, but now, with his daughter in his arms, he was pushed to the edge. Every time they asked for his identification, it felt like another subtle blow to his dignity, as though he wasn't welcome in a space where he should have been treated with respect. The weight of racial profiling crept into his mind. He thought back to every instance where he had been made to feel like he didn't belong. Growing up, he had been told countless times that he had to work harder, be better, just to prove himself worthy in a world that constantly tried to diminish him. Now, in a first-class cabin on a plane, he was reliving those same old emotions. His skin color, something he had no control over, was suddenly making him a target once again. The tension in the air was suffocating. The tension in the air was suffocating. Marcus could feel the stares of the other passengers, but no one was speaking out. Some looked away quickly, while others shot him sympathetic glances, unsure how to react. It was as if they were all silently waiting for this uncomfortable moment to pass. But Marcus wasn't just going to let it go anymore. With Ava still in his arms, he reached for his phone and dialed a number. His fingers trembled slightly, but his resolve was unwavering. The airline had to know what was happening. Marcus wasn't going to let this slide. This wasn't just about a misplaced ID check. It was about standing up against unfair treatment for himself and for his daughter. He needed to speak to someone who could make the stop. The time for patience had passed. It was time for action. It was time for action. Marcus could feel the tension in his chest loosen slightly as he spoke with the supervisor. The calm tone of the customer service representative on the other end gave him a small sense of relief, but he wasn't about to let his guard down just yet. He had already endured too much unnecessary questioning and discomfort. I've been sitting here, trying to enjoy this flight with my daughter, and they keep asking for my ID like I'm some kind of criminal, Marcus continued, his voice steady but filled with frustration. I'm in first class, for God's sake. This is absurd. I've already shown my ID twice, and now they're doing it again. I feel humiliated. The supervisor, who sounded genuinely concerned, quickly responded, Sir, I can only imagine how frustrating this must be. I am truly sorry for the inconvenience. I'll make sure this is resolved immediately. This is not how we treat our passengers, especially those in first class. Marcus wasn't sure if he believed the supervisor's words just yet, but something in the tone of the conversation made him feel like they were taking him seriously. He wasn't going to let this slide, though. I'm done, Marcus said firmly. I'm canceling the flight. This has gone on long enough. Please process a refund and get me and my daughter off this plane. There was a brief silence as the supervisor processed his request. I'll take care of that right now, sir. Your refund is being processed. We're getting you off this flight immediately. Marcus's resolve strengthened. He had taken control of the situation. He was no longer a passive participant in the discomfort. He was making the call. As Marcus stood up from his seat, holding Ava in his arms, the weight of his decision sank in. He wasn't just leaving a plane. He was walking away from an injustice that had been forced upon him. His heart pounded as he navigated the narrow aisle, every step echoing in his mind. The whispers and glances from the other passengers were unmistakable. Some looked away quickly, others continued to watch, but no one said a word. There was an uncomfortable stillness in the air, a tension that seemed to hang around him as if it was his fault. But Marcus wasn't looking for validation from anyone. He had made a choice, and nothing would change his mind. When he reached the exit, he could feel the eyes of the flight attendants boring into his back. Not one of them spoke to him as he walked past, and he didn't look back. He wasn't interested in more apologies or empty reassurances. What mattered now was that he had taken control, that he had stood up for himself and his daughter in a moment when everything seemed stacked against him. As he stepped off the plane, Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him. The discomfort, the humiliation, the weight of racial profiling, none of it had defined him. He had walked away from it, his dignity intact. Holding Ava close, he thought about what he had just taught her, how to stand firm, how to face adversity with strength, and how to always demand respect, no matter where you are. Though the supervisor's apology was sincere, Marcus knew the airline's reputation had taken a hit. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that Marcus had chosen respect over silence. On the way out of the airport, Marcus made a vow. He promised himself that no matter where he went, he would never let anyone treat him as less than he was. And next time, he would make sure his voice was heard louder and clearer. Together, he and Ava would find a way to get to their dream vacation, where they would be treated with the respect they both deserved. They would not settle for anything less. Hey, if you're inspired by this story of standing up for what's right, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the family. We've got more incredible stories like this coming your way that you won't want to miss. Like, comment and share this video with anyone who needs to hear it, because sometimes a single action can change everything. And remember, your voice matters, just like Marcus. So subscribe now and stay tuned for more real, powerful moments. See you in the next one. Let's keep the conversation going.